află în legătură cu noi un fost ministru al apărării din Ucraina, domnul Andrii Zagorodniuk, pe care îl salut. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Zagorodniuk. Your Excellency, thank you for speaking with us today. My first question is, what lessons did the Ukrainian army learn from this war?
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to the conference, and good afternoon to all Romanian people watching us today. Thank you for the interest to Ukraine. And indeed, learning lessons is the first thing we need to do, one of the first things, because this is absolutely unprecedented war, especially for the modern history. And obviously, we need to make everything possible that we capture the lessons, we understand what went wrong, we understand how to prevent next conflicts like this, and of course we need to avoid any opportunities for any continuation, any escalation, and we need to make sure that the aggressor fails. That there is any doubt that such behavior at what Russia is demonstrating is not going to succeed. And it fails, and it has no chances of future repetitions. So, of course, there's many different lessons we will learn, and we're learning today from the war. And this, I mean, both political and military. So, first of all, I need to say that I remember how we traveled around the world, and during the war of Ukraine, starting from 2014 and until 2022, and many people, many politicians around the world did not understand the true nature of Putin's regime. They still expected that it's possible to build up some predictable and proper relations with Putin at the time when he was doing crimes in Syria, when he was doing crimes in Donbass, when they were invaded Crimea. Before that, they invaded Georgia. So there were enough of the smaller cases, still tragic and still dramatic, which many people thought that they're not like an indicator of something horrible starting up. And what Putin did, he learned that as a reinforcement opportunity. So essentially, for him, it was like, okay, so if the world is tolerating Georgia, I can do Crimea. If I can do Crimea, then I can do Syria. If I can do Syria, I can do Donbass, and so on. And then he kept killing people. He kept torturing people in Donbass. He kept all these violations of all possible international laws, criminal laws, human rights, etc. And there's still a lot of people thought around the world, including in continental Europe, that predictable and stable relations with Russia are possible. So that's one of the lessons we need to learn. A dictator and a brutal, murderous person cannot be someone you can have a proper relations with. So we need to all learn that, and because we are now on the verge of making a very similar mistake still, because right now lots of politicians are talking that let's negotiate with Putin, let's settle some kind of a deal, and we can continue to some sort of normal life as we had before. I can tell you that Ukrainian people obviously are very keen to have a normal life as we had before, but it's not possible. Because Putin crossed so many lines, he did so many brutal things. He killed like countless amount of people, and still does that. And I'm saving time. Obviously, you all know that from the news. But cases like Mariupol, where he destroyed the whole city, etc. It's just, I thought that you normally would expect politicians around the world, most of them, to understand that okay, we need to win this war. This has to be a lesson to the whole world that this war ends with the victory. Yet we see constant discussions about the negotiations, about some kind of let's find some balance, let's find some and so on. So lessons which we didn't learn from Georgia, and when I'm saying we, I mean the whole democratic community. We haven't learned completely from Georgia, Crimea, Syria, Donbass. Some people still not learning even today. And we cannot afford that. And of course, we need to look at massive military component in this. So everything which is going to happen, politically, humanitarily, and so on, will depend on one thing: how this war ends militarily. This war militarily means that we have 750,000 people fighting against, and that's just armed forces, and we have about 250 more. So altogether, we have like around 1 million uniformed personnel fighting against Russians. Russians losing at the moment, as you know. At the same time, it's still very difficult. It's extremely tragic. And we have lots of activities which we need to look at. We have Western equipment working in Ukraine. There's many lessons there, how it works. We are switching from, if you remember, the first battle in this war was Battle for Kiev, as it's called in the press. It's a very press thing, like a newspapers thing. And it was, many people fought with Molotov cocktails. And many people fought with some outdated weapons and so on and so on. And of course, then the Ukrainian armed forces stepped in, and with all their capabilities, and they were running out of capabilities. So now we have some Western models, some of them old, some of them new. But I can tell you, this war will be won by technology. So whoever has technology advantage will win this war. So we're talking about autonomous systems. We're talking about UAVs. We're talking about cyber war. Cyber security, cyber weapons. We're talking about electronic warfare, which Russia has quite substantial one, and which we're fighting against. We're talking about artificial intelligence, which running the attack. Whoever did that attack in the Black Sea in Sebastopol, those were autonomous weapons, which were where we could see that the live video channel was established for over 200 kilometers, which is remarkable from technology perspective for such a small vessel. We saw drones and so on. So that's how this war will develop. We're getting into the increasingly technology war, and obviously that lesson we need to look at that, and this is something which we need to realize and get ready for.
No, I was wondering. You mentioned the desire of the people to return to normal life. Does the Ukraine government have a clear plan for ending this war, other than through diplomatic negotiations? Are you positive that you can win this war? You can push out the Russian troops from your country?
First of all, we managed to get the whole country fighting in the war. We have like a massive support of whole population. This is what sometimes is called total war. We call it comprehensive war. This is when the whole country fights. And we learned that with such an approach, Ukraine is invincible. So they just have zero chances of success. Of course, the worst case scenario for us is that the war gets into the protracted war of attrition, essentially where some sort of a frozen areas of conflict. In some areas, it would be essentially de facto ceasefire, but based only on the fact that none of the sides can get a distinctive advantage and so on. So that's a very dangerous scenario. We need to avoid it, because of course it will kick in fatigue. It will kick in the depletion of the resources and so on. However, we argue about this in various speeches, in various publications, in different platforms, that yes, it's absolutely possible for Ukraine to actually have a decisive victory. If we look at Kharkiv, if we look at what's happening right now in Kherson, where from Kherson region Russian forces are retreating, Russian forces are not that invincible as many people thought before the beginning of the war. They can lose, and actually they can run. And the reason they run is because they don't have a trust in their commanders. They understand that they're not winning this war. They understand that they're much weaker than they expected, and they're currently in the situation of serious demotivation. So as soon as something goes not according to the plan, as soon as they see that Ukraine advances, they start to leave. They start to run. And so if you look at the map of what they invaded in the first week of the war, first 2 weeks of the war, and where we are right now, the difference is staggering. And we have seen times when we've been liberating like tens of villages a day. So yes, it is possible. And And it's also not possible to look at the realistic peace settlement or some sort of negotiated settlement, because simply Putin is not that person who seems to be able, first of all, to reach any sort of agreement. We firmly believe that the reason he's pushing right now for some kind of a ceasefire and for some sort of a discussions is only based on his need to get operational pause to recover, because right now he's extremely exhausted, his force is exhausted. They need a couple months, a few months, or a year, as they hope, something like that, to recover and rebuild. But his strategic goals haven't changed for a second. And even if we look at his recent speech in the Valdai Forum, which we didn't need that, we knew that in any case, but that's another illustration. His goals are not changing. He's still adamant of murdering countless amount of people. He's still absolutely happy to do what he's doing, and the only problem he has is that he cannot succeed. That's it. So with such a situation, there is absolutely no other way but to win. We need to win, and Putin needs to fail, and that's the only lesson the history will need to learn, is that the next war like that is just a matter of time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zagorodniuk, for this discussion, and we really hope you will win. Slava Ukraini.
We will. Thank you very much.